For those out of the loop, Dan Harrin is the lead developer and creator of Laravel Filament, a collection of beautiful full-stack components that features an intuitive way to create tables, forms, notifications, even entire admin dashboards with multi-tenancy, and is completely free and open source. Today we're digging into Dan's daily workflow, his interests, and what's on the horizon for Filament. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
Happy, what is it, Thursday already?
It is a Thursday.
It's crazy. It's flying by. I can't believe it's September.
Indeed, yeah. Feels like only yesterday that Filament v3 wasn't even a thing.
Yeah, we're going to get into that actually. I want to talk to you about, obviously we're going to talk about the obvious stuff regarding Filament, but I want to start a little bit less formally. And so your bio says you're from Cardiff, UK. So what's life outside of work like? Family, hobbies, interests?
Yeah, so I've lived in Cardiff for, this is my second year now, with my girlfriend. I grew up in Essex, which is in England, but yeah, moved to Wales last year, and I really like it. We have a really nice area. It's quite a small city, but there's so much to do, and I was kind of missing that where I grew up, so that's why I moved here. And yeah, I'm really glad that I made that decision. Regards like things to do outside of work, I like to cycle, and that's really good in Cardiff. We've got a ton of bike lanes. We've got like parks and stuff that you can go to. So even though it's a city, it's pretty green, and you can cycle for quite a while and get all into the Welsh mountains if you wanted to. So yeah, no, it's really nice living here. Aside from that, I like cooking. I also play the trumpet in a concert band, which is something not a lot of people know.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I just like being out doing stuff, going to the beach in the summer, and yeah, just exploring some parts of the UK and other countries that I haven't been. So
That was actually one of my questions was regarding instruments. So trumpet, are there any other instruments you play?
A long time ago I played the guitar, but I haven't played that in a while.
Sure.
I've played trumpet for quite a few years now, so yeah, when the concert band's in, that's where I'll be rehearsing.
So that's an active hobby. You're playing often still.
Yeah, it's usually October to June-ish is the season that we rehearse. And yeah, no, so that's active. That'll be starting up soon again.
I'm gonna be searching for YouTube videos on that.
I did only join last year, so I don't know how much you'll be able to find.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll see. Maybe in time, right?
yeah.
So how long have you been into programming, and what did you do before you were programming? And then was it always PHP, or were the other languages first, or?
Yes, this could be quite a boring answer. I did nothing before programming.
Okay.
Pretty much because I'm still quite young, and I was basically at school when I started programming. So
Wow.
I started when I was like 10, so that was 10 or 11 years ago, nearly
Wow.
11. Started with HTML, CSS, not really JavaScript very much. I think I was a bit scared of that at that time. I think JavaScript does scare a 10-year-old. So then I went on to Python, which is one of the worst decisions of my life. I still don't like it, but did quite a few cool things with hardware, like Raspberry Pis. They were coming around about that time. So I had a Raspberry Pi. I did like input-output communication with different electronic components and stuff. And then I went back into web. I think after that I moved from Python into JavaScript, because that kind of gave me a foundation for actual programming. So yeah, I went into JavaScript shortly after PHP, because at that time I think Node.js was just about coming around. I think it was around for a few years, but PHP was still the best way to communicate with the database, and that was the next thing I needed to do. So just start with PHP, and I haven't left.
So what were some of your like initial projects that you were working on?
Yeah, so I mean, real projects, I probably started when I was 13, just helping people I knew, and also supporting people on Slack forums and Stack Overflow and stuff. And from there, I kind of got a few clients-ish. So I basically worked on a few projects, like an e-commerce store. I did a few of those actually. I did like a mini social network for someone. I did an itinerary app for event scheduling. I also did, what else? A CRM order system for a small company that was local. So yeah, I did a few things while I was still at school. Those were kind of my first real projects. And then from there, basically straight after school, I went into a startup, which was called Stagent. And I stayed there until January this year.
Oh, wow. Oh, so you were there for a while.
It was about nearly 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you were making money in school with development.
Yeah.
That's great.
Basically after school, essentially. But yeah, I mean, it kind of helped me in my studies as well, because we had projects to do for computer science, and I used some of my real clients in my projects. So I kind of just killed two birds with one stone, you know?
Yeah, that's cool. My son's 13, and I'm trying to get him to, like, you know, even if it's like doing the Blender stuff, or you know, like, 'cause he's like likes video games, but he's like, just play them. So any advice for him?
Actually, at Laracon I met so there's a plugin developer in the Filament community, and I think his son is probably 16, 17, could be 18. And I met his son. The plugin developer couldn't be there, but his son came up to me, so I was quite impressed that that dad managed to get his kid into programming as well, which is cool. Neither of my parents know anything about that. They kind of just left me alone with the computer, and I worked it out. So, it's cool to see parents actually encouraging people to get into it. Yeah, because that's how I did it. And I mean, I don't have any university education. But I did manage to get a job straight out of school, which is great for my situation. So,
and there's two sides to that camp. I've researched a lot on this, actually, the CS degree versus the School of Hard Knocks, if you will, and that's what I've done too. I didn't do any kind of formal education, just YouTube, you know, for the most part. So what inspires you? What drives you? And what are some like big personal goals that you have?
I think that since I kind of fell into Filament accidentally. I can get into the story about that.
Sure.
But since I started Filament, I've been driven by seeing things that people have been building with it. I also use it myself on a daily basis. I've used it daily since I started it. So actually being able to use the thing I built is also quite motivating, especially when I know that it would have taken me much longer to build something without it than I do with it. So
you can like see, you know, you have a need for some features or find some problems firsthand. It can fix it right away.
Yeah, and that's why our release cycle is quite heavy as well. Like we've had three major versions in 2.5 years. Yeah. But then we also have our daily, or every 3-4 days we have a new release, and that's kind of driven by my needs and the needs of the community. With regards to the story of Filament, this is going to start a little bit before I ever interact with the project. I basically started with Livewire in the beginning of 2020. I was working with it on a project. And this was during lockdown, and I had quite a lot of free time, so I started a Discord server for it, and that didn't exist before for Livewire. It did have one for Laravel, but it didn't really have a Livewire channel or anything. So I decided to make that, and I tweeted about it, and I think Caleb promoted it and stuff. So we do actually have quite a big member base in that. I think we have at least 5,000 or 6,000 people, could be more. So yeah, 2020 was when that started. From there, I kind of got into Livewire core development as well, so making PRs to Livewire issues. And from there, I joined the Livewire core like insiders team while it was still a thing. And essentially, that went on for a while, and I grew the server, and I was hosting monthly meetups and stuff. One of those meetups happened in, I think it was January of 2020. At that point, I was using October CMS, which is now the open source version is now Winter CMS, as like an admin panel solution. I love it. Like, it was a great tool. It was on jQuery and Bootstrap. I think Winter CMS still is. And I was really into Livewire at that point, so I was kind of reaching for Livewire in lots of situations. And also, it's a CMS. It's not really an admin panel, so that also required an entire extra Laravel app to be there just for the admin panel bit, because I wasn't really using the content management system front end. I was only really using the back end and stuff. So I kind of was like, well, I want a tool stack admin panel, but I really like what October has. So that kind of inspired Filament a bit. Anyway, start of 2021, there was a January meetup, I think. And I met this guy called Ryan Sherler. And he had essentially, I think, like a prototype for an admin panel called Filament. And Filament was a tool stack based admin panel, had like basic resources and a few fields and everything. I kind of was talking to him, and he, I think, was kind of stuck on the back end side of it a little bit. So we basically collaborated, and he did all of the front end design. He did all the branding and the marketing. He designed the logo we have still today. And I took over the back end and I rewrote the back end. And that was what led to version 1. So version 1 was released in March 2021. Now, Ryan was expecting, what his wife was expecting, shortly after that, probably 2 or 3 months after. So the amount of free time he had to work on the project was greatly cut. On top of that, he also owned an agency. So he's very busy. And at that point, I kind of took it forward myself. And I brought on Ryan Chandler, who I'd worked with quite a lot in the toolstack community previously. So for the last year or so, me and Ryan were collaborating on a few projects like the toolstack preset. And yeah, so he was really interested. He was an early adopter of Filament, so he took on a role of maintainer in the project, and he still does work on Filament. So yeah, Ryan was a big driving force in the beginning after version 1 was released. Now, version 1 was good, but I had a few issues with it. One of them was that while it was still an admin panel, I couldn't use all that work that I put in for the forms and the tables and the notifications outside of the admin panel. So one of my goals was to actually split all of the forms and everything out of that. And that did require quite a few breaking changes, so that forced me to kind of prepare a version 2 quite early. And I released the first version 2 package, which was the form builder. I didn't release the admin panel version 2, but I released it in September 2021. And that was the first package. Then I did the second package, which was the table builder, in November 2021. And finally the admin panel in December 2021. All of these were kind of redesigned. We had our version 1 design, and then we had our version 2 design. I'd recently worked on a UI kit called Razor UI with Lars. and Lars the designer and developer, and I kind of made the Blade version for it. So I used quite a few of the designs from that in version 2, and that really drove it forward because I'm not really a designer. So I used that to basically expand out our component library very quickly, and that allowed us to release version 2 so quickly. So yeah, December 2021 was version 2 of the admin panel, and then I moved on to the marketplace. Now, the marketplace was quite a big lift to build.
This is like plugins.
So the plugin section. So I did that probably in the first 3 months of 2021. I don't have an exact date. But yeah, after that meant our plugins really, really grew. And the amount of third-party content that people were making about Filament was really was much bigger than it was in version 1.
Is this when you saw probably most of the explosive growth that Filament's got to today, I would imagine?
Yeah, I probably noticed it much more then. And if you probably look at graphs of installs or stars or whatever metric you want to use, probably that was when the highest growth was happening. But I feel like the growth is probably even bigger now than it was. But I don't notice it as much because it's kind of always been growing since that point. So it's kind of normal-ish. So anyway, I got a lot of plugins submitted because people had now had a place to promote them. And people knew that plugins were possible, and there were so many examples of them, and people could just lean on other people's examples to do that. So I met a few people from there. So one of them was Dennis. So Dennis is now on our core team. He maintains the Excel plugin, Spotlight, a few others, really popular ones in our ecosystem. And he was also very active on our Discord server. So I invited him to the team in July of last year, I think. And shortly after was Zep. Now, Zep wasn't a Filament user before he joined the team, really. Zep was a big tool stack user. And he was working on essentially a notifications package for the tool stack. Now, that was kind of something that I wanted to work on for a very long time. So I saw him promote it, I think, on Twitter. And I was like, that would be good in Filament. What about if Zep maintains it under Filament and then also gets to join the core team and work on all our other tool stack stuff? And that also kind of gives him some promotion for his package that he doesn't have to work for. He doesn't have to establish the marketing and the brand and everything around his notifications package. Plus, it also can be used in the admin panel. So that's what we did. Zep joined the team in, I think it was also July or August, and we released the notifications package. First version with that was version 2, because it's in line with the rest of Filament. So yeah, ever since Zep has been a very major component of the Filament team. He handles a lot of the UI design now, which is great because I don't. I think after Zep joined, Adam joined, and Adam I also met through his plugins. He maintains Curator, TipTap Editor. I think it's like 10 at this point.
Wow.
It's quite a few. Maybe not all of them are on the marketplace, but he does have a lot on his GitHub. He's kind of the Sparty of Filament, I think.
That's saying a lot.
One man there. Yeah. So that was summer 2022. That was our biggest team growth, really. We had 3 new members in like 2 or 3 months. After that was Laravel Online. So that was September 2022, and Caleb had announced Livewire. So that was kind of got us all excited and all of the new things we could do. So that's kind of what drove us to start working on version 3. So version 3 began the development probably in September, October, and it went all the way into July this year. So July was when we launched.
So that was a question I had for that I was going to ask you was at what point in V2 did you realize we need to build a V3? So it was the announcement of Livewire 3, and then you were like, well, we'll rewrite some of this anyway, and then while we're here, there's some more features or some new things that we want to introduce.
The reality of development, open source development for me, is that when you're in a current major version, you're always thinking about the next major version and what things that you need to change.
So at what point are you writing a line of code and you're like, I'm going to immediately refactor this, or in 6 months I'm going to
it's usually when you start deprecating stuff. When you
Right.
write those deprecated comments, that's a sign. And it just makes you make mental notes on what you need to be thinking about for the next version. For us, it was Livewire that really made it a goal, like version 3, a solid goal, simply because Livewire announced things like, I think Y Navigate was announced for SPA mode, and a lot of people were asking for that. On top of that, we also had the teleporting feature, which we haven't actually done very much with, but that would allow us to do a lot more. The Alpine core would allow us to clean up a lot of code. So yeah, it was kind of a natural progression. On top of that, we also wanted Filament to then come into line with Livewire. And actually, going forward, we're going to aim to only release a Filament version 4 when Livewire version 4 comes on, because it's so dependent on it,
Right.
that if Livewire ever releases breaking changes, we're kind of screwed anyway, in the sense that we have to do a rewrite. So I'm going to try and hold off for as long as possible on version 4. So yeah, version 3 was nearing completion, nearing release, and Hassan joined our team, and Hassan is a designer I'd been working with for a couple of months on the new Filament website. So he's done all our new marketing brand, same logo but a completely different website. So yeah, he's a very talented designer and developer as well. So he joined our team on a long-term basis, because I felt like we were kind of neglecting our website a little bit. We were constantly focused on our product, and that is his speciality. His speciality is brand, personality, design, and just keeping that public-facing side really maintained. So
kudos to him, because the site looks amazing.
It's great. It's the best site that I've put out for Filament before. It is vastly better than our previous 2 sites, and I think it's one of the best websites in the Laravel ecosystem.
I agree.
And I mean, it's not. I'm not like saying that because I made it. I didn't make it. Hassan made it, but I really admire his design, and I think it looks great. And it really does. It does the tool justice, which I don't think our version 2 website that I put together did. I don't think that it reflected the power of it. But his definitely does.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you work for Kirschbaum, right? That's your employer. So how does that actually work with Filament? So you work for a company, but you're building this out. Does Kirschbaum then own Filament, or how does that work?
I joined Kirschbaum in January. I was working with Filament since the beginning. So at my startup that I worked on previously, we were using Filament completely. Kirschbaum made me an offer that I'd be able to essentially, I'd be supported for working on Filament at their agency. And all of my clients at Kirschbaum at the moment are Filament projects. And that gives me a lot of experience using Filament, as well as improving it to meet the needs of those clients.
So you're working on with client work through the agency, and you're using Filament for at least most of them or all of them, right?
Yep. At the moment, it's all of them. I'm expecting that to change at some point, because obviously our clients are always changing. But at the moment, it's all of them. It shows me the real life use cases of Filament, which is really useful. I own Filament. They don't own anything. Starting this month, I also have dedicated time at work for maintaining Filament, and this is a new deal that we've got going on.
That's great.
And it's essentially, they are now the officially partnered development agency of Filament. We recommend going to Kirschbaum simply because they're the best Filament agency that I know, that have the most developers that know about Filament. They all have access to me. Any clients that come through the door that need Filament work, I think they'd be best serviced by Kirschbaum. And I am very excited to work at that agency simply because of that fact. Anyone who needs a Filament project, like, they're in the right place, you know? So that's kind of always been the goal since the start, but this month it's really happened, and I now have time dedicated to it. I still own Filament, but they are the official agency.
So one of my questions was, and I'll get to it in a moment, like your daily workflow. Would you say that now how many hours are you working between Kirschbaum? I mean, you got to be watching your back health, right?
Yeah. Working for Kirschbaum up until from January until May, June, it was just normal working day, really. So I was working for Kirschbaum sort of 8 hours a day, 8 or 9, and then Filament maybe 1. And then version 3 got really heavy workload, and I was kind of working 12 combined.
Wow, yeah.
So yeah, that's dropped now, which is very good. So since the version 3 launch, and also since they've now given me time at work, I'm back to a normal-ish working schedule, and I'm able to have a better work balance.
That's great. That's good. It's imperative.
Yeah,
one
exactly.
of the things, and I'll release more videos on this, but I'm a big proponent for, you got to take care of yourself. Health comes first, right?
Yep.
So, well, let's get into that a little bit. Like, what is your daily, and I want to know, for me, I want to know, like, what kind of tools are you PHP, Storm? Are you VS Code? What kind of tools are you using daily?
With regards to the tools I use, I am a PHP Storm user. I've done VS Code for a while, and then when things got serious, I moved to PHP Storm and I haven't looked back. So yeah, PHP Storm, Laravel Idea. What else do I use? Ray.
I should put this here.
Yeah. Promise I'm not sponsored. I moved to Arc at the beginning of this year, and I'm live in Arc as a browser.
What is
I
it?
use GitHub Desktop for anything Git related.
What was the browser you said? Arc? I haven't heard
Arc,
that one.
yeah.
Okay.
It's a Chromium based one, but it's kind of got some nice experimental ideas, and they do seem to be doing a lot with it. So I'm in for the ride, So yeah, GitHub Desktop, because it allows me to easily pull in PRs and stuff, and just see a really good visual representation of changes. But yeah, there's a ton of good Git clients. That's just the one I've settled on. Table Plus, Hello by Beyond Code is another one I use for emails. Yeah, that's about it for my daily development stuff. But yeah, I use like DB Engine, Valet, PHP Monitor.
Very good. Yeah, actually, I think I'm living in the same world as you. I use actually exactly the same tool. I've been using GitHub Desktop for a while. And there was this whole like debate, I think, in a team I was on a while ago, like, I can do everything from the CLI. It's like, so can I, but how efficient, how fast can you get things done? And if you're working on multiple projects, you kind of need something that's just faster to get to, I think. So, and Hello, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it's Hello. We'll ask Marcel what it is. And he'll probably tell us in Japanese and Spanish. And I don't know if you saw that AI thing.
I did see that. Yeah.
So So that's cool. So since and we met, we talked a little bit on Discord, but we met officially at Laracon.
Yeah.
Since Laracon and V3, what's your life? I mean, has it changed a lot? Has it? I mean, have you seen a lot of?
Really?
No. Okay. That's
No, I obviously I see a lot of people using version 3 now, and it's very encouraging. But no, like with regards to my life, not really. I'm still working at the same place, still doing the same projects, still plugging away at the filament repository. So
That's great.
no, not much has changed, but I'm not disappointed with that.
No, it's good to have. You have to have a consistent lifestyle, I think, to manage anything long term anyway. So that's great. That in my eyes, this thing, I was using it. I had 2 or 3 apps on V2 that I still actually have to refactor to V3, but not a lot of people knew about it. And then I think it just kind of exploded around Laracon, at least in my mind, from my perspective. I think everybody's kind of different on when they saw that, but
there's a lot of content like yourself, Povlus, Dari has a series now. Mm-hmm. There is also a secret coming out on Monday.
I was gonna get to that,
the 18th. So I've got a creator series on Laracosts.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so it's basically me telling people about how filament components specifically work internally and how to build them. So think about things like custom form fields, layouts, table stuff, so table columns, table filters. There's another one as well. Info lists, entries, all of these custom components that you can build and redistribute. I'm going to basically tell you how to build those.
Oh, wow.
And show you all of the internal tools that we have in Filament to aid building those as well, make them reactive, make table columns editable. Things that we can't really explain very well in the docs.
Sure.
Like in the docs, it would have to be a solid example. And while that's fine, it's not really a good reference guide. I think that an example is much better as a series, like a video series. And that's what I've achieved with the Laracosts, and Jeffrey's given me full control over what that looked like. But it's great. I think people should love it, and it should make people much more efficient when building their custom components, just because they've now got knowledge they didn't have before. On top of that, we also have some episodes about plugins and stuff. So how to then redistribute those components as plugins, and even how to redistribute an entire panel as a plugin.
Oh, interesting.
So there's all sorts of things like that. It's a creator series, so it's all about the insights that I can give as the creator of the tool. It's not really a beginner series. It's not how to use Filament. It's building things with Filament.
Do you know if this will be under the paid umbrella or the free?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know at the moment.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. We're going to publish this today. No, I'm just kidding. But that's exciting. I'm excited to see that myself. You mentioned a lot of things there that are coming out in this creator series. I've noticed a couple things that people that even have been using Filament for a while, they didn't know that you could use a lot of the tables and the forms in just a Livewire component, right? So they're all like, let's install the dashboard, and then they're just building out that way. And I was like that, I think, too, for a while. And then I slowly started like, man, you could just put this, you can do this anywhere. So it's front end too. Besides that, are there any underutilized or lesser known, I guess, features of Filament that you don't see a lot of people talking about on the Twitters, or, you know what I mean?
For a while, it was things like actions. So just being able to do custom actions in places that people didn't know was possible. Also things like the create form for selects. That took a lot of work. That forced us to add a system for making actions work within forms. So that was why that was so much work. But yeah, I think I've seen a few bits of content include that recently. I think it's because I also included it in the getting started guide for version 3. It's one of the things there because I wanted to really promote it. What else do I not see that's being used? I know there's a few like niche form fields that I don't see being used, but it's not anything I can like push on people because it's just if you need them, you need them. Like I don't know, the key value field. That's
Right.
kind of quite niche. Like you don't often need to handle JSON in the client app.
Is that like the repeater? Or it's
Oh no, I
the
see the repeater all the time.
Okay.
So the repeater is like repeating other form fields, whereas a key
Another
value
form,
is
yeah.
just like a simple array of
Yep.
keys and value inputs, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite niche, but apart from that, like just being able to use custom components is quite underutilized, and that's hopefully that will change soon. But yeah, no, I think people use Filament to its fullest a lot of the time. I hope that people understand now, or maybe this will improve in the future, but I hope people understand that everything is overridable. Like nothing is completely set in stone, that you cannot change it. Like overriding methods, for example, rebinding classes to the container, macros. All of these things people sometimes miss, and they're not really features of Filament, they're just ways of customizing it that unless you know about them, you just don't know what to do. You're kind of a bit stuck. So yeah, that's probably the thing that I need to put more content out about, to be honest. Like how easy it is to customize stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. There was a problem I ran into. I don't even know if I figured that one out, but for me, and that's kind of how I learned too, is I have a problem or I want to add something custom, so I'll dive into the docs or just do arrow and then see what's available to me. You know what I mean? Like, oh, look at all this stuff. And you start playing around with it. So yeah, that's
I think
great.
Another useful one is the structure tab in PHP Storm. So if you open a class like a form field, for example, and you click on the structure tab, it will tell you like all of the methods that are available. So you can go through it like that and kind of scan it. Apart from that, I'd really encourage people to try and read the source code if they can, because the source code can give you clues about how things can be hooked into. Like maybe there's a function that you can use to modify an object, or maybe there's a render hook that you can use to add content somewhere in the view. So yeah, I think source diving is incredibly powerful, especially when using Filament. And yeah, if more people did that as well, I think they'd go further. Yeah,
for sure. You got to sink your teeth into it. And I think the people like me and Laravel Daily that have seen the light and we're like, man, this, we're just trying to show everybody, like really get into this. There's a couple personal friends that I've got that I started showing this to, and they were like, I don't know. And once I showed them how to connect the dots, they were like, man. And then this last weekend, actually on Monday, I got a text saying I just spent the whole weekend rebuilding my whole app in Filament, and I'm just sold in love. So definitely great job, great work.
Thanks.
And the fact that it's free and open source, and we can all get in there and build beautiful apps for our clients, it just makes our lives that much easier and us more efficient. So that's definitely great. What would you say, what are some like next generation things that you would love to see Filament able to do? Like thinking, in a dream world, I guess, what would it handle?
I don't know so much about dreams, because I think dreams always change for me.
Okay.
Simply because our roadmap is constantly being shaped by users. And when that gets shaped, it's kind of unexpected. I don't have solid plans for what's going to happen to it. I mean, we have some plans that are coming up in the short term. So Zep is working on themes. So themes is something that's going to be released hopefully this month. So our first theme, the minimal theme, in September 2023. And that's essentially going to be a reskin of the interface. And we will release a series of different skins that you can just install into an app, and it will make Filament have a different look and feel, and maybe it was going to fit your brand better. So yeah, on the short term, themes. On a long term, I think going into the paid plugin space is probably good for me and other team members. So Zep's paid plugins will probably be mainly themes, but he might venture into more. My paid plugins might be like pre-built systems that you can install onto a website. Probably not going to do these ideas because there's plenty of other solutions for these, but think about things like help desks, CMSs, like website uptime, potentially. Like all those sorts of things that websites need that you could just install into an existing Laravel app to monitor stuff could be a good idea. Not those specific examples, but things along those lines. For sure. As paid plugins. So that's probably going to be the long-term vision for Filament as a first-party project. Our sort of goals.
That is, that's interesting. And I think there's a fine line between like a WordPress environment where I can go and search for plugins, and that's something maybe have you considered maybe making that an option? For me, I would love to. It would make me, because I call it going shopping when I'm looking at the plugins page, like, ooh, what else can I add for my clients, right? Or for myself to make it that much better. But maybe an option to include that inside of a dashboard somehow so that you can see what's available. But I think that takes it away from, well, yeah, I mean, you have to code too. How are you going to wire that up to a model whatever?
We have an idea for this, actually. It's probably not going to be part of the interface, but we're thinking about a CLI tool. So like an artisan command that's using the new prompts library. And essentially would allow you to search the plugins from the command line.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, that's one of the things we're going to be working on.
That's right.
And then it would search them, install them for you once you found the plugin you want. This is especially good for people who know the name of the plugin they want to install.
Right.
So it would search it for you. It would install it. It would run any commands that plugin author wants you to run when you install their plugin. It might also give you extra information after you install it of things you need to do. So that's one of the ideas. I've just thought of another one, actually. Vault integration for Filament. That's on our short-term roadmap as well. So this would be basically being able to add a form or a table or an action to a view without needing to create a Livewire component. The way we do this is by wrapping up everything in a Vault component. So you'd output like a directive or a blade component anywhere. You'd pass in your form schema and your table configuration. And then from there, we're going to convert that to a Vault component behind the scenes, and that's how it gets output. And you don't need a separate Livewire component to then be able to use that in an app that doesn't use Livewire, just uses Blade.
Would you? How would you interact? Would you interact with that? I guess it would all be interacted with from within code. I'm guessing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So this would be for like simple things. So, like take the table example for. So for a table, you might have all of your columns and your filters defined in the code. Obviously, there's not really any outside interaction with that table. I mean, you might have actions and stuff, but those can all be defined within the Blade component. Forms, it could be a little bit trickier. We might have to add like a parameter that accepts a function that gets run when you do that. So. When you submit the form,
cool.
Sorry.
Very cool. Very exciting. It's cool to see something, number one, just grow as much as it has, but also being so helpful. And the fact that we're still adding and not dreaming, but thinking and collaborating on what we can put into it. I'm going to end this with a fast 15. This is like A or B. First thing that comes to the top of your head. Are you ready?
Go on then.
All right. Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Rap or rock?
Oh, rock.
All right. Favorite place to travel or vacation?
Probably Cornwall in England.
Dark mode or light mode?
Dark mode.
You've already answered this one. I'll ask it anyway. VS Code or PHP Storm? It's PHP Storm.
Yep.
How many monitors?
Laptop and one.
Okay. Music while coding?
Yes.
Tabs or spaces?
Tabs. Well, both. Whatever. Like
Trick question.
4. That's all I'm gonna say.
4.
I'll use tabs when I'm doing it. That's all I know.
There you go. Vue or React?
A Vue.
Office or remote?
Remote.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Cardio or weight training? I think you kind of
Cardio.
Yeah, bicycling, right? Cycling.
Yep.
Book or movie for relaxing or entertainment?
Movie.
Fine dining restaurant or home cooked meal?
Home cooked over fine dining. Maybe a normal restaurant might win, but a fine dining one, home cooked.
Last one. Early bird or night owl?
Early. Always
Early.
happen.
Yep. Very good. Well, Dan, it's been a pleasure. We really do appreciate having you on and getting to know really what life's like inside of Filament, what's going on, what's driving it forward. I will leave links in the description to you and to Kirschbaum and to all the team members and obviously to Filament and go from there. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on your channel.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time. I put links to Dan, Filament, the entire Filament team, and Kirschbaum in the description of this video. If you want to take a deeper dive into Filament and learn how to build a full application from scratch, check out this playlist with over 20 hours of hands-on how-to tutorials from yours truly. I'll see you over there.